Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, welcome to Robservations, the show about something. This is Robservations episode number 294. My God. And once again, I am your Viceroy of Verisimilitude, your master of fun and wonder, your existential Mr. Rogers, bringing you the NPR of the genre pundit space. Thank you all for hanging those titles on me. I appreciate it. These shows are all obviously sponsored by Lucky Tiger Men's grooming products for those men who want to look good and feel great. And if you go to their website at getluckytiger.com and you punch in PGS for Post-Geek Singularity, you can get fabulous stocking stuffers for 20% off. That said, I'd like to editorialize before I start today's show. When I started this program, the reason that I started this program was I wanted to bring. It's not like I consciously decided to. I want to be a ray of sunshine in fandom's life. That's not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do was bring my kind of fandom outward more than I had been since I've been on YouTube since April of 2015. Which is basically, we live in an age of wonder where we're getting amazing stuff all the time. And I felt like that I saw fandom falling into sort of this rut. You can call it toxic fandom. You can talk about it being negative, whatever. But I've always sort of, my whole life been bouncing off the walls about fandom. And for the most part, my fandom has been rewarded professionally, personally. I mean, I was invited in 2005 to bring my film Free Enterprise to Israel. And I went with Roger Nygaard to Tel Aviv. And they had what was called the Icons Festival. And we spent the weekend showing our movies and speaking to fans. And there were people literally, well, mostly Israelis, but people from all over the world there. And it was amazing. And I thought to myself, wow, how many science fiction fans or fans of movies and television get to make a movie with their childhood idol and get invited to festivals in Israel? I was able to go to the Old City in Jerusalem. I was able to go to the Arab Quarter, and I had food, unbelievable meals. I met amazing people that I'm still friends with today. I was able to go to Bulgaria and produce a horror film. I lived in New Zealand working on Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia. I was in Australia working on Superman Returns. I mean, I have had, as far as my genre life is concerned, a pretty good time. Like, I always joke about being old and having one foot in my grave, but you know what? I feel the same as I felt when I was 15. And I do mean that. So, I might weigh a little bit more, but my body feels pretty good. So what I wanted to do with this channel was sort of bring the enthusiasm that I have had in my life for all of these things in the pundit space, all things geeky, nerdy, science fiction, fantasy, horror in all of its myriad forms, whether it's movies or television or comic books or novels or action figures or whatever it is, whatever your thing is. We live in as most of humanity does, with all the craziness that's going on, we are living in the best time ever to be alive for human beings. And certainly if you're a genre pundit or if you're a fan of any of these flights of fancy, if you, and I know you are because you're all here, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity, if you're here and you're enjoying all this stuff, you're my kind of people. We all park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. That's what we do. But here's the thing. The mandate of what I want to do is to have a good time. And it doesn't matter who you are, where you're coming from, how you identify, what your religious or political background is, what your IQ is. I don't care. If you want to celebrate all of these things that we love, everybody should be welcome. Everybody. And as I always say, everyone has a story to tell you haven't heard yet. You have yet to hear. So what really bothers me is when there are fans, and I don't believe it's gatekeeping, but when people come in and they are, all I ask of people, it's very simple. Just come here and be respectful. Gilbert is not respectful of my desk. Just be respectful of each other. Because at the end of the day, we're all here for the same reason. We're all enthusiasts. We all have enthusiasms. And just respect everyone else. It's very simple. So if somebody doesn't, and they don't respect not just me, but my moderators and the people that are here free of charge because they're, oh, Gilbert, do you want a cookie? Is that what you're saying? You have to respect the people that are here trying to make this channel great. I'm not paying them. They're here because they're enthusiasts as well. Some of them, like Detective Jim, I came into contact with for the very first time because of this channel. I've never met Detective Jim, but one day I'm going to, especially if he gets a passport. But all I ask is that, hey, whether you're on the website, whether you're on the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page, whether you come to the Burnettwork.net, or whether you're here in these live chats, just afford everybody the kind of respect that you would hope to receive from them. That's it. That's all I ask. And you know what? If you want to go after me on the internet for wanting that to be the case, or you decide that, hey, that's not something you're interested in, that you think you're better than other fans, or you think because, hey, you have intellectual acumen that's better than most people, let me tell you, this is not the channel for you. This is not the place you should be. And while I would love to have you and hope you can contribute, if you're not willing to do that and you're not willing to respect these people, get the fuck out. All right? Because it's not like I have 1 million followers. All of you who come to these chats, you matter. You mean something. You mean something to me. You mean something to my moderators. And you mean something to the rest of the people that follow this channel. The reason that I like this channel, the reason that this channel keeps going on, the reason I have a website is because I really appreciate all of this interaction. And if it ever comes to a point where there's toxicity or weirdness here, I'll pack it up, man. I don't have to do this. I got better things to do. I just got a new feature to work on. But you know what? Ultimately, the reason that I do this is, for me, it's good for my soul. And I hope it's good for your souls too, because if it stops being fun, if we stop getting something out of this, and if we stop being respected by one another, and if we stop smiling at being members of the Post-Geek Singularity, there's no reason for any of us to be here. That's all I can say. That being said, let's get into it. Now, as you all know, we're in the holiday season, and there are sometimes, I have to tell you, speaking on the same tip, whether I'm getting a box of stickers, I didn't expect to get anything doing this channel. I really didn't. I just wanted to share my enthusiasms with all of you. But I have been astonished at the feedback that we've received, that I've received personally. And one of the things that delights me is the stuff other people do. If you look on the Imagination Connoisseur Gallery, there's a woman who made a Captain America Avengers motorcycle. Their action figure collections, artworks, tattoos. I mean, I love seeing genre fans sharing their enthusiasm. But one of the things that I've discovered over the course of this channel, and I've talked about him before, Swack Props, our man Swack Props, over in Malaysia. And as I've been told, I guess Swack refers to the South Island of Malaysia. I'm not up on my geography. But so, as you all know, months back, I discovered that I went to his Etsy page and he makes prop books. Which, first of all, the idea that somebody makes books, like what he does is he makes beautiful recreations of books that are in films. One of the things that he's doing now is Henry Jones's Grail Diary from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Now, I was amazed when I found him that he had made the book, The Nine Gates from the Nine Gates, the Kingdom of Heaven, the book that the titular book of well, the Ninth Gate. I guess it's not really. It's a book that was covered in Roman Polanski's movie, The Ninth Gate, that was based on a novel I think called The Club Dumas that I'm a huge fan of. The Ninth Gate is one of those movies that I've been a huge fan of. Well, anyway, so I was just enamored of the fact he made this book because I'm like, first of all, I've never met anyone that loves that movie as much as I do. But when I found out that Swag Props made a prop replica of the book, and there's of course 3 different versions of it, he sent me one. He sent it to me as a gift. It's amazing. I mean, it's beautifully made. It feels like a real book. All the illustrations painstakingly recreated. Unbelievable work. So, as I've been doing unboxings this week on the show, I received a package in the mail. Unbeknownst to me, I received no notice it was coming. It came in this package. This package. And it came, I looked at it from Malaysia. The only person I know from Malaysia is Swag Props. And what was inside? This was inside. Now, a lot of you might look at this and go, what is that? It looks like, a leather-bound diary of some kind. Oh, it is. You know what this is? It's Rorschach's journal. Now, as many people know, one of my favorite things in the world is the Watchmen graphic novel. What our boy Swag Props has done has made Rorschach's journal, and with the rubber band and the pencil, and what he's done is he's combined the movie version of Rorschach's journal and the comic book version. And if you look at what he does, everything that you see, every image that's ever been shown in the film, when someone flips through it, he stops and he goes in and creates the writing. I mean, look at this. This is the level of fanish insanity here. And he even said like he'd recreate it because there's very few pages actually shown. But I look at this. This is like a real hefty thing. I mean, this is amazing. And not to be outdone, that he doesn't just send me the book, right? Like with the Ninth Gate, the Nine Gates, he sends this, right? There's an extra added a packet of goodness, and I'm like, well, what is this? Oh, Pyramid Transnational. If you've read the Watchmen, comic books, let's see, can I see that? There you go. And there's an ID. There's Gunga Diner. There's an Gunga Diner. This is amazing. Of course, the floating Chinese food place. There's a wanted poster for Rorschach. There's the piece of paper that flies up. There's a picture of the Minutemen. This is what Swag Props does. I mean, I can't tell you. At the end of the day, somebody would say, well, Rob, what are you going to do with that? Well, I'm going to have it on my table, the set for the Robservatory, which, by the way, if you go to the TeePublic store and you look up my name or Robservations, there is a Robservatory t-shirt that's very cool that actually there's 2 versions of it that Bill Hunt from the Digital Bits made. But what I love about what Swag Props does with his product, not only is it first rate, not only the deep dive, the attention to detail, and the fact that, I mean, this is really substantial. And what's funny is, like, I can't wait on the Robservatory set. You're going to see the desk. You've never seen this desk, but it's a big desk. It's a case study desk from Modernica that I've had for almost 2 decades. I love this desk. You're going to see quarter scale figures. You're going to see these books. What I love about what he does is it encapsulates what I love about fandom. The thing about being a fan is you've got to make something tangible. That's why we like model kits and action figures. I mean, like artifacts of the things we see on the screen that are in our imaginations. You know, they're tangible. You can pick them up and they feel more real. Right, Gilbert? Look at Gilbert. Look at his sweater. Come on, buddy. Look at how good he looks in that sweater. This guy, he's so regal, aren't you, buddy? Yeah, you are. Yes, you are, buddy. You're the buddy. But it's great. And to me, it is such a it's such a deep dive into fandom that I love what he does. Now, oh, what would you like to talk? You want to get up here and talk? Or do you just want a cookie? I don't know. I'll give him another cookie. You had cookies before. But I just love it. And who would have thought that there was somebody on the planet Earth, much less somebody in Malaysia, not that I'm discriminating against anyone in Malaysia, but I love maybe it was because he's from Malaysia that led him to love books in movies. I just love the specificity of it. The more specific fandom is, the better off I love it. But anyway, I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart. Everyone knows how much I love the Watchmen graphic novel and the Watchmen TV series. You know, I started out iffy on it, but I'm really loving it. Okay, Gilbert, you can have another cookie. But it's just great. I want to thank him for sending me that. And the unboxing journey continues. So thank you very much. And let's get into the meat and potatoes of this show. So, as everyone knows, Michael Bay's first movie for Netflix dropped, which I have yet to watch. And it's Ryan Reynolds. It's called Six Underground, which is amazing. It's kind of like that song, Take Me Down, Six Underground. Now, I haven't seen it. It's an action movie. Michael Bay made it. It's probably one of Netflix's most expensive films. But reported today on Garth's site, Dark Horizons, Garth Franklin, one of my favorite. It's an aggregate site, but I'm a huge fan of Dark Horizons. I go there every day. To me, it's kind of the Wall Street Journal of the New York Times, or maybe even the Drudge Report. It's an aggregate of all the important entertainment news stories of the day. And there was this story, and it dropped today. And the headline is, Ryan Reynolds, watch my film however you want. After so many years of Transformers films or the odd smaller fare, e.g. Pain and Gain, 13 hours, director Michael Bay returns to non-CG heavy, big-budget action blockbusters with Six Underground, which is bypassing cinemas and has just had its worldwide debut on Netflix, where it is now available to stream. One thing it has in common with Scorsese's The Irishman is it's a very cinematic film that demands to be seen the best way possible. Of course, Scorsese famously has his opinions, saying last month he's fine with home theaters, but please, please, please don't look at it on a phone, please. An iPad, a big iPad, maybe. Ryan Reynolds was asked his take on how people should watch this film. And he tells Variety, you should be able to watch whatever the fuck you want to watch on whatever fucking device you want to watch it on. I don't know. I would say that's just the way things are. Michael Bay saw it both ways, saying, I don't want my movies to be watched on a phone either. But movies aren't that bad on these new TVs that have HDR, high dynamic range. Listen, most of the Academy votes on TVs, okay? We all love movies. I'm a big cinema guy, but the great thing about Netflix is it's a new voice out here, and it's a strong voice, and they do interesting content. So that's why I appreciate it. Six Underground follows a group of people declared dead who have teamed with Reynolds' billionaire character to pull off covert ops against some of the world's worst people. Now, I haven't seen this movie, but I've wanted to see it. I have to tell you, I for the most part, enjoy Michael Bay's movies. Now, I know people are going to be like, oh, Rob, you know, how can you be the viceroy of verisimilitude and enjoy Michael Bay's movies? Here's the thing. I know that Michael Bay, even from the color grading he does on his movies, is not interested in verisimilitude. Now, as much as I love that, I understand Michael Bay isn't so much a director as he is a genre unto himself. He has a style that's, well, let's face it, it's very over the top. He doesn't even have, from a directorial standpoint, he doesn't really have much of a point of view, an intellectual point of view, where if you watch a David Fincher film, he has almost a clinical way of shooting his movies, which I love. But with Michael Bay, he shoots every scene with 6, 8, maybe 10 cameras. He even had a website, I think he still has it, called Shoot for the Edit, where he just gets as much footage as he can, and he decides what he's going to use in the edit bay. Nothing wrong with that. When you're shooting action, it's and cutting as much as he does, it's something singular that he's sort of, in a way, created. You know, he came out of it was funny. I once heard that Michael Bay could never direct a commercial until David Fincher had done one, or a music video, because he needed to have somebody to emulate. I don't know if that's true, but either way, I must say that I take more delight out of Michael Bay movies than not. And for me, people are like, how can you like what he does? Well, when I watch a movie like Transformers Dark of the Moon, the third Transformers movie, the Battle of Chicago is just insane. And when I go into his films, I know what I'm getting. I know that I'm not going to come out feeling as emotionally or intellectually moved the way I do when I watch, say, Stanley Kubrick's movies. But what I'm going to get is more akin to the joy I feel from Invasion of the Astro Monster, as we know it, Godzilla versus Monsters Zero. And I think that's okay too. You know, I don't want to be one of these guys that can't sits there and goes, "Oh, you only have to watch films that are enlightening." I'm like, no. Sometimes it's just fun to take a bunch of firecrackers and blow some shit up. There is a joy to be taken from that as well. I know. I mean, anyone who grew up in Washington State, we just an Indian reservation was an hour away, and we could buy illegal fireworks from China and blow shit up, and it was fun. And you know what? Beyond watching something explode or lighting something and running away and feeling the visceral joy of that, that's all that it matters. That's all we wanted. And with a Michael Bay movie, it'll be beautifully shot. It'll be loud, bombastic. But here's the thing. As somebody who just finished and post-supervised a film, even though it was a very low-budget movie, we spent a long time getting the picture and sound right. And we live in a world where, for not very much money, you can get a pretty big screen and, more importantly, a decent surround sound system. And here's something. Technicians, our sound guy, Steve Yeaman, who is our sound designer on Tango Shalom, has been working on the sound of this movie, our low-budget indie film, since May. Since May. And the movie was mixed in 5.1. Now, for those of you who might not know what that means, you see a lot, Dolby Digital 5.1 surround sound. What does that mean exactly? Well, a 5.1 surround sound system is just that. It has 6 channels of audio. Now, to be simple, let's say you're sitting in a rectangular room, right? A 5.1 surround sound system means that you have left, or I guess right, screen right. You have left, well, you have front, left, and right speakers that usually have music and effects. You have a center mono channel where dialogue comes from. And then you have left and right surrounds. That's 5 channels. And your 0.1 is your LFE channel, or it's your low frequency channel, which has the rumbling bass. And what happens is, when you're watching a 5.1 system, now, of course, we have 7.1 or 9.1 or 11.1 if you have Dolby Atmos. What's happening is that sound, when you're watching something in that kind of a sound field, is being directed to all of those channels. So if you buy a Blu-ray or you buy even a DVD, the information exists on a little disc that will program your surround field and send dedicated information to all of those speakers. Now, a lot of people, even you buy a surround sound system, but you don't really set it up properly because no one knows necessarily what it means, because we just hear those things and we go get them. I've been to friends of mine, actors' houses that are worth millions of dollars, and they have somebody come in and set up their home theater, and they think it's all ready to go and it'll sound great. It's not calibrated correctly. It's amazing. It's amazing what people will put up with. It's like people who buy really expensive TVs and leave the motion smoothing on. Like a TV can add frames to your and make your image look better. It's a TV. So I think the idea that I understand where Ryan Reynolds is coming from. He says, look, I don't care. Or even nowadays, we live in a world where, sure, people go to the gym, or they go to Soul Cycle and they put up their pads and they watch a movie or something. Well, here's the thing. I'm an iconoclast when it comes to this. I started working in home video in 1980, where we had shitty VHS, and I dreamed of a world where we would be able to recreate the theatrical experience at home. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted more than anything. And now we have that technology. It exists. It's not even that expensive. You can get yourself a great surround sound system and a great TV for not a whole lot of money. Now, I would hope, because I know that the more enveloping the picture is and the more enveloping the sound is, the better your experience is going to be when you see a movie. And being someone that specializes in post-production, I know that we spend hours, days, weeks, months trying to make the experience of watching the movie the best it can be. And I think the world, there are two things that I'm convinced of. The world would be a better place if more Americans had passports and traveled. And I think that content, whether you're buying music or you're watching movies, the world would be a better place if everybody had more optimized and better systems to consume their media on, because they would appreciate it more. They would feel it more. It would, I mean, when you hear great low frequency, an explosion happens in a Michael Bay action film, what it should do is the bass should rattle your teeth. And I don't mean Davey 504, slapping the bass. I don't mean that. Even though I love Davey 504, I mean bass like, roll, feeling the rolling of the low frequency channel. All of that is great. I love that. And I don't agree with Ryan Reynolds. I understand he wants people to see his films, but I think if you aren't watching movies on an optimal system, you're cheating yourself. What you want is you want to experience every ounce of creativity and I understand what I'm asking is snobbish and elitist. Like, come on, Rob. I mean, all I can afford is a Black Friday $150 TV set. I get it. I feel your pain. I do. And nor do I think I would never tell you not to watch something. I wouldn't. But a great surround sound system, and by the way, just read up on it, and a great screen will help you. I'm telling you, you'll love your movies more. You'll love your content more. And you'll thank me. You'll be like, you know what? I'm going to see what all the fuss was about. I mean, hell, back in the 80s, 33 years ago, I used to write these articles about letterboxing, and people are like, what? I don't want little black bands on the top and bottom of my screen. But what do? They didn't go far enough, but they made TVs wider. I mean, all I can say is I think you'll enjoy the media you consume more if you just upgrade your equipment. It's worth doing. Don't watch action movies like Six Underground on your pad when you're at Soul Cycle. Besides, you can't hear the instructor, right? You want to hear the instructor. Just saying, by God, it's there. The technology, it comes on the disc. It's untapped potential. The first time you set up a real surround sound system and crank that shit up, it's going to be great. No matter what it is, even if it's a romantic comedy, you'll be enveloped by the sound. You'll hear tweets. If you're watching When Harry Met Sally in the rear surround channels, it's great. It's great. And when Ryan Reynolds comes out, and I like Ryan Reynolds, I understand he wants people to see his movie. But boy, if you see it on a decent sized screen with some great sound, you're gonna have a better experience. And all I want, one of my crusades, and these are, yes, I understand, as a middle-aged white cis male, I can say, wow, I think your life would be made better if you have great surround sound and a good TV. I get it. But on this particular chat, I'm not speaking about anything about social equality. I'm not talking about people starving. I'm not talking about those things. I'm not. We could do that later. I am speaking specifically about watching and consuming your favorite TV shows and your favorite movies. And those movies and those TV shows, they come with amazing sound built in. All I'm saying is that your life would be a little better off if you could tap into that and make watching media a little bit more special than it's become. That's it. That's all I'm saying. And I know people are like, why is he talking about that? I can barely afford rent. I know. But we watch so many movies and so much television. We consume, you, imagination connoisseurs, consume so much media. I just want you to get the most out of it. Anyway, I thought that was something that I needed to discuss. I needed to get it off my chest, by God. And let's see, JB Bonifacio is here. And speaking of which, JB Bonifacio says 6 Underground makes The Rock look like Marriage Story. Happy Friday, Post-Geek Singularity. But you know what's great about that? The Rock, oh boy, as you all know, another Michael Bay special. I want to say The Rock is the movie he made after Bad Boys. Everyone loves The Rock because Ed Harris is awesome. Sean Connery is awesome. Nicolas Cage is awesome. And of course, it has one of, if not the greatest quotes that probably the greatest line of dialogue Sean Connery ever uttered. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. Losers. I'm going to say The Rock. Let's see if this quote comes up. Nope. I'm not getting that. Losers, Sean Connery, because I need to say it. I got to get it right. Yes. It is one of the great quotes of all time. And let me see if it's up here. If I can find, God, you know, it's so hard when you're live and you want to find a quote. But oh, here it is. Your best. Losers always whine about their best. Winners go home and fuck the prom queen. I always love that. So, wow, The Rock, that's not a resounding endorsement of 6 Underground. I have to say I was kind of excited about it. Colin02456 says, you're clearly a man of diverse taste as a film director. Is the work of Truffaut, Godard, Ozu, etc. as sacred to you as it is to many other film buffs? 100%. As a matter of fact, I own a lot of their work on Blu-ray. Yes, I mean, here's the thing about all of those directors you mentioned. Truffaut is French, Godard is French, Ozu's Japanese, etc. as sacred to you. There's a reason why people talk about those directors. And I think one of the things that's not understood is that Hollywood films for a long time were a certain way. Whereas what they were missing was everyday life. There was a thought in Hollywood, and even today, that there was not a lot of drama to be had in everyday life. American cinema was very pulp oriented. By the way, this is an oversimplification, but if you weren't doing a literary adaptation like Gone with the Wind or even The Wizard of Oz, you were making film noir like Double Indemnity. A lot of film noir movies are adaptations of plays and books. but it was thought that there was not a lot to be had by documenting daily life. And I think that foreign filmmakers, whether you're watching movies like Open City or the 400 Blows and those movies were derived from real experiences and not real experiences that were what I would say pulpified, but I mean Kurosawa's Akira. Kurosawa could make a samurai movie, whether it was Hidden Fortress, whether it was Seven Samurai, or a Rashomon, which is sort of different, but the idea of a movie about perception and how people can see the exact same incident but perceive it in different ways. He could make a movie like High and Low, which is a crime thriller about a kidnapping, but then he can make a movie about like Akira that dealt with what does it mean to get old. And one of the reasons why people revere Godard and Truffaut and Ozu is because they were showing cinema through their work. They show that cinema could be very different than what we had become used to. And I do revere their work because that is in itself a feat. It's not easy to do. Talk about verisimilitude. Remember, whenever you're trying to recreate something, even if it actually happened, if you're doing a docudrama, it's really hard to do. And what Truffaut was doing, Godard was interesting because Godard's movies were maybe not they were certainly not neo-realist at all. He was pioneering different things. I mean, he was also making pulp entertainment that wasn't necessarily concerned with creating reality, I think, the way Ozu or Truffaut was. But still, he was breaking ground. Even his editorial style was breaking ground. So absolutely. The problem is nobody's watching those movies anymore. Younger audiences, like I made a challenge, by the way. I made a challenge about Michelangelo Antonioni's Ennui trilogy. On this show, I said his Ennui trilogy that I love, La Notte, La Ventura, and The Eclipse, all of which I own on Blu-ray. I challenge anyone who watches this show to go back and watch those movies and report back. Only one person said they didn't say they watched it yet, but they said they bought La Ventura. Nobody actually said they watched it. And I maintained, I said, look, people are not being trained to watch those kinds of movies. It's like watching paint dry. One of the things I still haven't received it yet, Wim Wenders' 5-hour version of Until the End of the World came out on Blu-ray, and I ordered it for half price during the Barnes & Noble sale. I was told it shipped, but I have yet to receive it. I am dying to see this. I love the original version, even though it was deeply flawed. I've wanted to see this 5-hour version that was legendary since 1993, and now I'm going to get it on Blu-ray. I can't wait. So, yes, long story short, all of those movies are very much worth watching. Another modern filmmaker that I try and get people to watch is Wong Kar-wai. I'm a huge fan. People know In the Mood for Love. Quentin Tarantino famously brought Chungking Express to America when he used his success after Pulp Fiction to create Rolling Thunder, which was his distribution network that I think he was using Miramax to release. But he did movies like Switchblade Sisters and released that, and brought the world Wong Kar-wai's Chungking Express. And I'll tell you, I had not seen a Wong Kar-wai movie, but after seeing Chungking Express and really, it came out after. I wouldn't call it a sequel. I would say, because it was. If you watch Chungking Express and Fallen Angels back to back, because they're all part of the same. I mean, look at those kinds of movies. I love those movies. I love In the Mood for Love, but Chungking Express and Fallen Angels, watch these movies together as one. They're basically one thing. You should really watch them. But I have many diverse tastes, and that's because I grew up watching movies from all over the world. So Mark C is here. Mark C says, after the Wall Street Journal report about Disney secretly paying Twitter users to promote Frozen 2, I now honestly think toxic fandom was manufactured by the studio. Like a snowball at the top of the hill, became an avalanche of rebuttal. Now, I have not read the Wall Street Journal report about Disney paying Twitter users to promote Frozen 2, but it doesn't surprise me. Just like, I mean, what's funny to me is it also, like I've said on the show, I've handed it to the troll farms that interfered in our election. That, by the way, if you don't think outside bad actors are disrupting the fabric of American society every single day, we are being manipulated from all quarters all the time. Now, I mean, it's funny. So if Disney secretly paid Twitter users to promote Frozen 2, well, to me, that they're paying people to market their movies. So that's cool. Did the Twitter users say they weren't being paid? I mean, I have no problem. I've been accused of being a shill for Disney, and I'm waiting. I will happily take whatever checks, you can. I used to say pay me in Blu-ray, but now it's all up on Disney Plus. I have no problem if a studio wanted to pay me to promote even if, get this, if CBS came to me and said, Rob, shut up about Star Trek Discovery, we will give you money to speak positively about the show, I will admit, I will take that cash and I will go out there, I'll stand on a street corner with a sandwich board and I'll promote Star Trek Discovery. Because why? It's a job. It's a job. I'll freely admit it. I will say this. No studio has ever paid me to say anything positive about their product. I'm waiting. When it comes to that kind of a thing, I'm a whore. You pay me. That's what you do. You get paid to do a job. And if your job is to promote Frozen 2 on social media, so be it. I'll do it. But here's the thing. There's always been toxic fandom. It's just, it didn't have an outlet like social media. And I don't think that, I want to be excited by Star Wars. I've loved Star Wars most of my life, since I was 10. So for 80% of my life, I've loved Star Wars. I've bought Star Wars merchandise. I've bought the movies umpteen times. It's funny. I wrote an article, I think it was back in 1999 for a one-issue magazine for Chris Gore that he published about right when Phantom Menace came out, about collecting. I wrote an article about how many times I'd bought Star Wars. And this was in 1999. It's 20 years ago. I've probably bought Star Wars twice as many times since then now. Whether it's on DVD, how many DVD copies of Star Wars did I buy? How many times I've really only bought it once on Blu-ray, but I've downloaded the despecialized versions and burned Blu-rays of those. Team Negative. I mean, how many versions of Star Wars do I have? I still have my Laserdiscs. So if someone's paying you and they're using social media to buy opinions, I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily think that's the same as toxic fandom. I don't think anybody's creating what's happened in fandom these days. I mean, I feel like even, see, I mentioned toxic fandom. My dogs can be toxic fans. I don't necessarily think, I don't think toxic fandom is a good thing. I am disillusioned because we deserve better. And what frustrates me about both Star Wars and Star Trek is that if you had people that were knowledgeable, this is why Kevin Feige is successful. Kevin Feige started, he was a PA and he worked his way up as a fan, but also a professional. The problem is that there just isn't, like, even Dave Filoni, who's a great fan and loves Star Wars, doesn't have the acumen to produce live action material. So Star Wars doesn't have their Kevin Feige. And the people that are running Star Wars are doing the best they can. Here's the thing, nobody really wants to make something bad. In the case of Star Trek, everybody that's working on Star Trek now wants to change Star Trek and make it something in their own image. Well, that's not what Rick Berman did. Rick Berman started out going, we need to preserve what it was Gene Roddenberry had created in the first place. His entire mandate was about that, and he figured out a way to do that. He continued doing that. Well, now we have people that with both, well, especially Star Trek, they're like, oh, that's old. We don't like what Star Trek was. So let's change it, make it more woke or make it more of today or whatever the fuck they want to do. That's weird to me. Like, you want to work on Star Trek, but make it in your own image? No, that's not Star Trek anymore. And who are you to decide? And Star Wars, the problem with Star Wars is everybody loves Star Wars, but not to the certain extent that fans, the deep dives, they can't make those deep dives. So, and nor do they take the time to find out. As I've said before, if I was hired to do anything, Harv Bennett did this, Nicholas Meyer did this with Star Trek. If you're hired to work on Star Wars, you need to get an overview, especially if from 1991 to the present day. What stories have they told in the Star Wars universe? What is already out there? And if you're not going to provide something that's just as good, if not better, you shouldn't take the job, because what you're doing is you're setting yourself up for disappointment. But anyway, I don't think that I think the problem is that the people that took over, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy, as I said, I'm a huge fan of hers, huge fan of Kathleen Kennedy's, but even Kathleen Kennedy, she's running a whole company. You think she's going to sit down and read every single piece of Star Wars material that came out since 91? She doesn't even know what's out there. What I would do, as I would with any franchise, and Disney has Alien, Predator, Star Wars, I would hire people that reported to me. And I would say, because I'm like, okay, I need all of you to read this material and come back to me, and I would ask specific questions. But the people don't even know that it's out there, and they don't know the questions to ask. But anyway, Marv Diesel says, RMB, I first caught you in Heroes with the great big sweaty himself, John Schnepp, and Amy Dallin. Will you ever be on Heroes again? It's not the same without you both. Well, first of all, let me say you're right. And, I started on Heroes in April of 2015. I was on Heroes for 3.5 years. I was on Heroes with John Schnepp and John Campea. I didn't know John Campea until I was on Heroes. And I did over, I think, close to 300 shows over the course of 3.5 years. And it was unfortunate after John Schnepp passed. There was a lot of internal politics that I had nothing to do with. And to be honest, I was not treated very well by Collider, and I don't blame anyone there. I certainly don't blame anyone involved with the Schmodown, but I understood what was going on. It was an untenable situation, and I was a casualty of that by no fault of my own. I didn't do anything. But I probably won't go back to Heroes. But to me, my whole thing was that Heroes was John Schnepp's show. And while John Campea was on it, it really was John Schnepp's show. It was his conception. And I was really happy about all the time that I spent there. I loved the 3.5 years that I worked on Heroes. I loved working with Amy Dallin. I thought Amy is incredibly smart. She really knows her stuff. She's passionate. And I thought the three of us, to me, ultimately, even though John Campea was there, to me, the core Heroes team, the best version of Heroes was John Schnepp was our leader, and doing it with Amy and John was I thought the best Heroes lineup. And I miss that, but I don't see myself ever going back. That's why I started working with John Campea and doing this show. But I want to thank you for those kind words, very much so. Willow Yang is here. By the way, I have a letter to read. I have a Willow Yang letter to read. Willow Yang says, I still haven't watched Marriage Story yet, but what's the most devastating breakup movie that you've seen? For me, it's probably Blue Valentine. Blue Valentine is pretty devastating, but I have to say, my very favorite comic book adaptation is also one of the most devastating breakup movies ever. And that is Blue is the Warmest Color. I know. I understand. It's a relationship movie about two girls, and people made a lot about the sex scenes in it. I have to tell you, I love that movie. That movie kills me, and I completely understand it, and it's shattering. And another movie, and I have to say, wait, do I have it here? Do I have it? Is it? Oh, it here. I don't know if you'd call it a breakup movie, but one of my favorite romantic tragedies, Betty Blue. I love this movie so much, and it kills me every time I watch it. Also, to be honest, they sent me this. I've said it before, but Cold War, another film, a Polish film from last year. Why they sent me a DVD, I don't know. You know, I ordered other things from the Barnes and Noble half off Criterion sale, and they sent me a DVD of Cold War, which upsets me. But blue is the warmest color. 81 film position that I've talked about on this show before. It's also devastating from a different standpoint. But yes, check that out. Roberto Suarez is here. Recently I got the Fantastic Planet Blu-ray from the library. Do you recommend watching it with the original French soundtrack or the dubbed English version? Okay, Roberto, I have to tell you, of all the movies in the world that I would recommend watching a dubbed version, and it's only because when I first saw Fantastic Planet, I saw the dubbed version, and it is animated. To me, Barry Bostwick, yes, star of Megaforce, and that he of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, he does the voiceover narration. I like the American version. I would start with the dubbed version and then watch him before you turn it back in. Watch both versions, but I really do prefer the English language version. But Fantastic Planet is one of my favorite science fiction films. It really is. I love it so much, and I always will. I always will. Amir B says, I totally agree, Rob. I saved money for 1 year and got myself a 4K TV last month. Totally worth it. I watched Die Hard 4K on it. It was glorious. Well, Amir, good to see you. Thanks for supporting the channel. First of all, the 4K disc of Die Hard. Look, I've been buying Die Hard and various. The first time I bought Die Hard, I bought the 20th Century Fox letterbox laserdisc back in 1988. Might have been beginning of 89, but I think it was 88. Die Hard has always looked shitty on home video. It's very difficult to recreate Jan de Bont's photography. That's why I'm so excited about a Basic Instinct 4K. Studio Canal is remastering Basic Instinct because Jan de Bont, who directed The Haunting and Speed, but Jan de Bont started out as a DP. A DP, by the way, Willow, Vesna, stop laughing. A DP means director of photography. In other countries, they say DOP. They put in the of photography. But in America, we say DP. And yes, I know if you punch in DP into Google, it shows you something different. But Jan de Bont was the DP on both Die Hard and Basic Instinct. He uses a lot of filtration, and it was very difficult to recreate his photography on NTSC video or even HD video. The 4K remaster of Die Hard is a revelation if you're a fan of that film, and I can't wait to see Basic Instinct. So you understand how amazing it can be when you see a film presented in that way. My man Dieter Bastian's here from Deutschland. How you doing, Dieter? I couldn't agree with you more, Rob. Sound to me is even more important than picture quality. Enjoying Laserdiscs with 5.1 back in the day was audio heaven, especially because you were getting, wow, the audio on Laserdiscs was amazing. And for me too, that was when I first was listening to movies in 5.1. And the sound field of a movie really changes your perception of the film. By the way, I didn't get it this week. I haven't the funds come and go, but Francis Coppola's it's a remix. It's actually a re-edit of his film The Cotton Club, came out on physical media this week. Unbelievable that can you believe it? I mean, I can't believe it, but it did. And yeah, I agree. And what's interesting is most people don't know just how deep the sound field goes when you have a 5.1 surround system that's set up properly, when you have it in a room and it's spatially, it's life-changing. It really is life-changing. And, one day I want to be rich enough that I'm just going to fly on a whim. I'm going to fly to and figure out where Willow Yang lives. And I'm just going to bring her the biggest TV I can buy and a gigantic sound system and set it up. Because if I hear her say that she watched another movie on YouTube again, I swear to God, I'm going to pull my teeth out with pliers and bleed all over her carpet and make her pay for the dentures that have to get put in. But anyway, yes, that's my dream, Willow. I'm going to come to your house when I hit it big, and I'm going to bring the biggest OLED TV I can and gigantic speakers and an Atmos system. We're going to rock your world. So you can be a molecular biologist and all that. When you have your doctorate and you're creating the cure for cancer, you can pay me back. I mean, remember, this is my dream. I can't do it right now. But one day, we got to stop you watching movies on YouTube. That's my dream. But yes, Dieter, I agree with you. Sound is important. And you live in Deutschland, so the German QC standards are very strict. So if you're not watching a movie dubbed and you're hearing the original 5.1 mix, you guys get something special over there, because the Germans know what's up when it comes to high technology. Mark C says about this Disney thing, the paid Twitter users were told to keep quiet about being paid by Disney. I believe that may be against the law. I don't know if that is. I mean, you know what? If Disney was paying Twitter users to say good things about Frozen, that's just a job. I mean, I don't know how that's illegal. It's not like, to me, that's just marketing, So you pay people to say good things about a movie, that you're paying them. You're paying them to say that's their job. Their job is to say good things about a movie. Now, where it would get iffy is the people that are being paid by Twitter, if they're pretending they weren't paid and they're lying about it. If they come right out and say, Disney has paid me, I mean, I don't know why they would, but yes, I'm going on Twitter. This is the thing. Twitter exists and it's a platform, and if somebody wants to monetize it or turn it, that's what the Russians did in our 2016 election. We have all these platforms and they just utilize them. And what's funny to me is, why would Disney have to do that? I find that odd that anybody thinks Frozen 2 needed any more word of mouth, considering how much money it's made. It wasn't just because they paid people on Twitter to say good things about Frozen 2 that it's become rapidly successful. But I honestly don't have a problem with that. However, if I ever asked somebody, are you a paid shill for Disney? And they said no, and they actually were, that's deceptive marketing. I think there's a problem there. As I said before, I keep waiting. To suck on the Disney teat. Just pay me money and I'll say what you want me to say. Unfortunately, no one's done that. And like I said, CBS, I am willing to sing the praises of Discovery if you're going to pay me lots of money. Until then, no. So, but it's interesting. Mark, I got to read up on this. I got to see what's up, because I don't like that idea. I don't think it's a great idea, but I can't necessarily criticize it that they were doing it. Martini McFly says, let's give it a shot. Here's some money. Please say Star Trek Discovery is far superior to any Trek before it. Wait. Let me do this so somebody can actually take this out of context, or just if somebody wants to download this and make this video. Hi, everyone. Robert Meyer Burnett here from Robservations, the show about something. Subscribe on the Burnettwork. And you know what Robservations says? That Star Trek Discovery is far superior to any Trek before it. Burnham is a far better character than Kirk. He says, Martini McFly says, I just want the soundbite. Laugh out loud. Just kidding. Keep up the great work, Rob. Well, let me just say, when somebody takes this snippet and says, Robert Meyer Burnett says Discovery is what I just said it was, remember, Martini McFly paid me to say it. And you know what? If I'm being paid to say something, that's fine. That's fine with me because, even with 30% less that YouTube takes, what Martina McFly just made it possible for me to do is to buy a Blu-ray of a movie that's coming out soon. So I want to thank you for supporting the channel. I don't necessarily think I would use your money to necessarily buy a Blu-ray for myself, but the option is still there. But I think it's very funny that you made me say that. And I'm sure someone's going to say, oh, you're hypocritical or whatever. But at least all of this soundbite will exist. So there you go. Stubble McShave, all the way from Sweden, says, I rewatched Amadeus. It benefits from great sound. Oh my God, Amadeus has an incredible sound mix. And yes, because when you hear that classical music kick in, it's amazing. It's amazing. And again, you understand. You understand when you're hearing really great sound. Like, we watch a lot of stuff. I do not have Netflix, for instance, patched into my surround sound system. I probably could. I don't. But we listen to a movie on Netflix. It's coming through the TV speakers, which is lame. But I throw in one of my Blu-rays and crank up the sound, man. It rocks the house. Mark C says, the FCC has strict regulations about paid advertisements and letting your audience know. By the way, as of this, you missed a $10 super chat of mine. Did I? Oh, wait. You did say, I did. You're right, Mark C. Ooh, this is a good one, too. Mark C says, I think you get important lurkers to your channel. Since your channel started, Fandom has sought the reason with each other instead of yelling. If you didn't build that bridge, you supplied the wood. Really? You think so? That's really nice of you to say. Like, I would like to believe that. I would honestly like to believe that that's true, because as I have always said, the baseline for all of us is that we love Star Trek and we love Star Wars. I have never met, as you say, you're the only self-professed toxic fan that's been incredibly supportive of this channel. You're here almost every day. You've certainly supported me through super chats. You put your money where your mouth is, and that means a lot coming from you. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I would say this. I know for a fact that everybody who's angry, I still get shit for going on Jeremy's Geeks and Gamers show. And you know what? I thought we had a great show. I really enjoyed going on this show with Jeremy, and he reached out to me, and a man of his word, he had me on his show, and we had a great conversation. And what's interesting to me, and like I said that, I said that before I went on a show, I'm like, Jeremy is a fan. Nobody wants to dislike Star Wars. They don't. As a matter of fact, I don't either. I mean, I want to see a great Star Wars movie. And I do appreciate it. I mean, if you think that we have lurkers here, I appreciate that. And to all you lurkers out there, I don't have an alcoholic beverage here, but I will drink my Diet Coke and I will cheers to you. And I think, look, you know what's great? We live in this world where as fans, we get great shit, man. Whether you like Watchmen or not, it's some pretty ambitious television. I could not believe how good The Boys was, or The Umbrella Academy was. I even think both might exceed their source material. We got Anaria. If you haven't seen that, that was a movie. I mean, my God, talk about a movie. I thought Alien was one of the great movies about the existential dread of the cosmos. But man, Anaria, you got to check that out. Or Anaria. It's Stubble. How do you pronounce that word? I mean, it's a Swedish film. Anaria. I want to say Ania. Anaria. I don't know. But man, if you guys haven't seen Anaria, by the way, this new Boulevard 6 or Boulevard 8, this new Hugh Laurie show looks like somebody saw Anaria and said, let's do the flip side of it. It looks like the same show, like dangerously close. I don't know if it is, but yeah, I mean, man, we certainly live in a great world. Fandom has a lot of great stuff. And I would like to say that, why be angry? Why? Why do I have to be angry? This letter comes from Richard G, by the way. Hey, Rob, I think I found the answer to the biggest question. You mean 42? No, not that one. Not that one either. Okay, maybe not the biggest question. The question is, what is the meaning of life? I think it's stories, our own stories and those on film. We have our own stories and we are a part of other people's stories. Without stories, what would the universe be? Am I weird for thinking that, or have I hit on something? Well, I've said this. People have asked me, like, what is the purpose? What is the ultimate purpose of mankind? And I think that our purpose from an evolutionary perspective is to perhaps tell the story or know the universe, because the universe exists in a void, and it is indifferent. It's indifferent to suffering, it's indifferent to all of us, but we can recognize the universe. And I don't know if the meaning of life is to tell stories. I think stories exist to help us understand the meaning of life. And I think the meaning of life is different from every person. Honestly, I believe life is its own reward. Going through every day, breathing life in, breathing the air. I mean, if you think about it, if you go outside and you stand in one place and you close your eyes for a moment, or even a long moment, just stand up and listen, and then take in a deep breath, just a deep breath, just the deepest breath you can take. Fill your lungs with air. I think there's a sensual pleasure in that. I think feeling your lungs, which are part of your body, that are the products of millions of years of evolution, if you choose to believe that, or if you choose to believe something else, God miracled lungs in. I mean, either way, the fact that lungs work and the fact that you can take, I mean, just drawing a breath can be an incredibly sensual experience, the same way that eating a bite of a great moist red velvet cupcake, or I like seafood. Elizabeth hates like shrimp, but I love shrimp. I love lobster. I mean, when we eat a great meal with all the different sauces and the juices and how they coalesce, I mean, there's so much to love about life. And I think life is its own reward. Existence is its own reward. And we just happen to live in a time where there's so much awesome shit in the world that, and especially for reimagination connoisseurs, I mean, swag props, man. Like, I don't even know. He would have had to have done a high def frame grab in 4K, perhaps, and then he created this and then weathered it and made it look old. Like, this is the picture that was in the comedian's frame that Rorschach took. I mean, the fact that Swag Props even did that and made it a part of Rorschach's journal, and like gave me the pencil, it's chewed on. Like he chewed. I imagine Swack Props himself chewed this pencil up to make it look. The only thing that I'm disappointed by is it didn't come with the big "end is nigh" sign that Walter Kovacs walked around the city with. Wait, I'm just kidding. Swack, don't, no, I don't need that. But I understand the level of detail. I mean, it's amazing. We live in amazing times, people. And but I do think part of it, like telling each other stories, is, I've said, the greatest way to convey information to one another. And I think that stories are important. There is a really important something about sharing stories with one another, or sharing the experience of being alive. When it comes, even sexuality, when you're actually able to interact with somebody. I mean, how often do you get to touch another person, to feel that the sensual nature of just having your hands on someone else's flesh and feeling them respond to you? I mean, that's amazing too. The sensual pleasures of life. And I consider watching a great film, especially enveloped by a great sound field that's provided by 5.1 or 7.1 or 9.1 or 11.1 sound. What's better than being in bed with somebody, your limbs intertwined, your naked flesh against one another, watching Apocalypse Now on 4K Dolby Vision, surrounded by an 11.1 Atmos sound system? I mean, what's better than that? Perhaps maybe being inside your partner might be. I don't know. At the same time, while the helicopter attack on the beach. Of course, I really don't like to be distracted, but still, I'm just saying, from a sensual pleasure standpoint, whew, it's all good, right? Anyway, guess what? I'm just going to jump right into Willow Yang's letter. I haven't even read this letter. I just saw that she sent it, but I like this letter already. As everyone knows, you can read Willow Yang's letters on the Burnettwork.net website. And by the way, if you would like a bottle of Lucky Tiger head to tail body wash, if you go and comment on anything on the Burnettwork.net website, you can be entered into a drawing to win one. This letter comes from the great Willow Yang. It's more Willow talk. One day I want to hear about what happened, Willow, when there was some real Willow talk in your room with someone else. Like I want to get the Penthouse Forum letter from you. I'm waiting. Greetings, Rob. This is a bit of a random subject, but you've recently read a letter from a viewer who mentioned reading bedtime stories to their kid. I've just come across the trailer to the new adaptation of Call of the Wild, starring Harrison Ford, that dropped a couple of weeks ago, and, well, it stirred up some fond memories. I've had a bit of an obsession with animal books when I was a kid. Indeed, I actually wanted to become a veterinarian in elementary school. I have a vivid memory of reading Old Yeller when I was in the 4th grade and crying uncontrollably when I reached that infamous moment near the end. Other books that I've loved include Where the Red Fern Grows, The Incredible Journey, Julie and the Wolves, and the Silver Wings series, although the latter probably falls more into the fantasy genre. However, Call of the Wild is a very special book to me, not just because of the story, but also how I was introduced to it. You see, I first learned about the book through my mom. It was probably just a year or two since we immigrated to Canada. I'd probably be 8 or 9. My mother was taking a course at a local college to improve her English, and The Call of the Wild was one of the books that she'd been assigned. I remember the cover well. It had an image of a brown dog standing in some snowy mountains. At the time, I'd just watched Lassie and was thus obsessed with dogs. I asked my mom to read the book to me, and she did when she had the time before bed. Now, my English was worse than my mom's at the time. She was the only one who had actually tutored me and helped me learn the language during my first couple of years in Canada. I had no knowledge of the Klondike Gold Rush. Even though I couldn't fully understand everything that happened, the tone of the story really left an impression on me. It was unlike any of the animal books that I was used to reading. It was a cold and harsh story that delved into the violence and callousness of nature. I've revisited the book a couple of times at different stages of my life, and I was able to gain a greater appreciation for it as my English improved and I matured more as a person, and was finally able to comprehend its underlying themes. Now, I would like to take a moment to give my thoughts on the trailer to this latest adaptation. So they've apparently decided to use a CGI dog instead of a real dog for Buck. The reason they appear to be doing this is so that they can give the dog more human-like expressions, but unfortunately that destroys, as you would say, verisimilitude for me. Let's drink to Willow using verisimilitude. There's just a disconnect between the animal's cartoonish facial movements and its photorealistic appearance that I find to be a little jarring. Me too, by the way. However, something else that I noticed about the marketing is that the movie doesn't seem to be really following the core concepts of the novel. Of course, I certainly don't expect movies to be a slavish page-by-page adaptation of a book. What may work well on the page may not on screen, and vice versa. Moreover, I haven't seen the actual film yet, so this could be another Bridge to Terabithia situation where the trailers looked as if they'd completely disregarded the source material when in fact it was all actually a rather deceptive marketing ploy on Disney's part. The Call of the Wild trailer makes the movie appear like a heartwarming man and his dog adventure, when the book to me is almost like a dog version of Lord of the Flies, where a once civilized, domesticated animal is dropped into a cruel environment and descends into primal savagery. And yes, I get that it isn't going to be an easy sell to the general audience, but it does bother me a little when an adaptation completely ignores a key spirit of its source material. When that's the case, then I wish that they could have the movie be a more original story and not slap on the IP. I felt the same way about the 1931 adaptation of Frankenstein, which I thought failed to capture the themes of alienation and the question of who the real monster was, Frankenstein's creation or society, that was central in Shelley's novel. I haven't read every Jack London novel or short story, but of those I have read, The Call of the Wild and White Fang, another Disney movie, by the way, are probably my favorites. Even though the two books are quite alike in their story and themes, in some ways they are the polar opposites of each other. Whereas the former followed the tale of a pampered dog turning into a wolf, the latter saw a wolf born into a harsh environment, badly mistreated and abused, eventually learning through kindness to become civilized. As a kid, I enjoyed White Fang more because it had a happy ending, and I just found Call of the Wild to be a bit too dour to be palatable. As an adult, however, I do find that Call of the Wild resonates with me more. It certainly has a special place in my heart as I inevitably flash back to memories of my childhood when I'd lie in bed at night listening to my mom read from the book. What I'd give to be able to relive those times again. Did your parents read to you when you were a kid? Yours sincerely, Willow. My parents really didn't read to me when I was a kid. My dad, however, that's not true. My dad, he used to read the James Blish adaptations of Star Trek episodes. He did that for a while, but then I became a reader at a very early age, and I liked reading. I couldn't deal with people, although it's too slow. But in like school, in elementary school, I used to love after recess. Usually the teachers, we'd have story time. The teachers would read to us, and famously, Mrs. Walton, my fourth grade teacher, read John Christopher's The White Mountains, The City of Golden Lead, and The Pool of Fire, which for me was the Harry Potter of the time, but it was about an alien invasion of the Earth and the resistance against that invasion. And to this day, man, I went out and bought those books and read all three of them, and then delighted as it took the rest of the year for her to read them. But I'd been through them like 2 or 3 times. I loved story time. People did not read to me enough, but that doesn't mean I was at all neglected in any way, shape, or form. But I do love, I love listening to people read or tell stories. I really do. I think that's great. This letter comes from Ian Samuels, one of our most prolific letter writers here at the Post-Geek Singularity, a true imagination connoisseur. Ian writes, Rob, adapted for screen both big and small, more often than Dracula, Jesus, Bond, or any other, more than 260 films, more than 1,000 episodes of television, Sherlock Holmes is a colossus of the screen, print, and even comic books and video games. By the way, Nicholas Meyer, who directed Star Trek II, wrote and directed Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, and wrote Star Trek IV, part of it, and directed Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, recently had his latest novel come out about Sherlock Holmes. Not his first. That would be the 7% Solution. Another factor of Sherlock Holmes is that despite first appearing in print some 130 years ago, the stories of Holmes have defeated time, with new adaptations happening even in the modern age. Not many characters from the Victorian age have been able to stand the test of time and work in modern adaptations, but with the BBC Sherlock TV series first broadcast in 2010 and the American Elementary starting in 2012, along with the new film adaptation starring Robert Downey Jr., Holmes proves to still be a big seller. Arthur Conan Doyle, who began to hate his creation, who wanted to concentrate more on his historical novels and his sportsman activities and adventures. He was a top cricketer, a world-class, a cricketer. Is it cricketer? I like it must be cricketer, not cricketer. He was also a world-class boxer, was one of the innovators behind downhill skiing as a sport and the invention of the life jacket. I didn't know that. But still, despite all of this, he had created not only 2 of history's greatest characters, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, but also one of fiction's greatest friendships. Also important is the science of forensics. In 1910, in France, Edmond Locard set up the first police laboratory and cited in his writings inspiration from the works of Conan Doyle and the detective techniques of Sherlock Holmes. Holmes has not only survived and thrived throughout time, but his techniques have led us to the science of forensics we have today. Sherlock Holmes is quite possibly the most important fictional character ever created and seems likely to outlive us all, not just his creator. Well, I completely agree with you. And that's a great letter. I love Ian's deep dives into these things. It's great. A lot of the time I didn't know that. This one comes from Dan Hensley. I wonder if Dan's related to Pamela Hensley, Princess what was it? Princess Ardala from Buck Rogers in the 25th century. Hey, Rob, so happy to be writing in again. I noticed on today's Campia show, you discussed your love of Pirates of Penzance, but also that you'd never seen the filmed version starring Kevin Kline, Linda Ronstadt, or Angela Lansbury. I have not. However, as I said, I did perform in a play, a musical of the Pirates of Penzance. I did play Major General Stanley. About binomial theorems, I'm teaming with a lot of news. I mean, I'm telling you, I am the very pattern of a modern major general. I have information, vegetable, animal, and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote the fights historical from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. But my military knowledge, only plucky and adventure. Anyway, yes, I've never seen that version. My late stepfather had an eclectic taste in musicals, and when I was growing up, he and I watched our copies of The Pirates of Penzance and the George Hearn, Angela Lansbury version of Sweeney Todd on Laserdisc. Though that was one of the great things about Laserdisc, they did have operas and operettas and plays, and those are great. Those are some of my favorite memories from my childhood, and my mother loves to tell the story of me swinging my toy sword around singing, "I am the Pirate King." Just wanted to say, please, you know who played the Pirate King? Rex Orkney. It was funny because he was Rex. I was always like the second fiddle in terms of other guys. I was always like the most popular dude. I was always like the second fiddle. But what can you do? That's not a bad place to be. Just wanted to say, please watch both of those and let us know what you think. I'd be very interested to know, seeing as my love of musical came from those. Thanks as always. Well, Dan, that's good. I will absolutely take you up on that. I have no problem, Dan, looking into that, because why not? I like musicals. What is it? The Lin-Manuel Miranda, his new musical, the trailer dropped yesterday. It was In the Heights, I think. Who doesn't want to see that? I'm like, yeah, I'll watch that. Simon is here. Simon, thanks for supporting the channel. Simon says, Rob, you are so cool. We both like Star Trek, but I like the action part of Trek more than the heavy social overtones of our society storylines. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, Trekker, Trekkie for over 40 plus years. Well, you know what, Simon? I would say to you, first of all, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. But I think that the action in Star Trek is also informed by the commentary. The fact that the storyline is what it is makes the action more resonant and more meaningful. I mean, look, obviously one of the great episodes of the original series is the Doomsday Machine. And, it's really about Ahab, an Ahab-like character, and Commodore Decker, and how the angst he's feeling, the horror at losing his crew informs the action. But still, there's great action when they're trying to take down the planet killer. And I think it all works together. The great thing about Star Trek is you have both points. Jermanin says, I want the Jedi text as a SWAC prop. Amazing. I got to tell you, my boy Cal, SWAC props, man, that guy can do anything when it comes to books, and his research is impeccable. And the way he does everything, the way he weathers everything. I mean, the one thing I was worried about is I hope that this book didn't smell like Rorschach did, because he was always described as being not the most hygienic of men. Thankfully, it smells like delight. It's delightful. So that is that is exciting. So yes, our man, that definitely he does good work. Brian Cruz is back with a letter. Hey, Rob, a few weeks ago, I told you in a letter I was going to rewatch all of the James Bond films because I realized I'd not watched them in a long time. Well, I just finished my rewatch. I wanted to tell you all about it. And in my last letter, you did mention getting back to you with my thoughts. It's good timing since that amazing No Time to Die trailer just came out. It was a blast rediscovering a franchise I loved growing up. I still cannot believe I let myself go so long without watching any of it. My opinions about certain movies did change. Some were positive, some were negative. You know, if I can interject into your letter here, it's amazing to me what it is like to go back and watch something that you haven't seen in a long time. And I think as we move through life, our impressions or our opinions of things change, and that's all natural. I think that's that's something that's going to happen. But overall, not many bad things to say about this franchise. I won't waste your time by giving you a detailed review of every Bond film. However, I thought it would be fun to at least rank my top 10. It's been probably about 10 years since I did a Bond ranking, so this will be fun. I'm going to go, well, you started with number 1. Maybe I should start with 10 and go down. I'm going to start with 10 and go down. 10, For Your Eyes Only. Had to include another film with my favorite Bond, James Bond. Objectively, this is probably his second best behind The Spy Who Loved Me. 9, The Living Daylights. A more serious take on Bond after the Roger Moore films left some people, not me, with a bad taste in their mouths. I really love this one, plus Aha provides another memorable Bond theme song. 8, A View to a Kill. This is definitely a guilty pleasure ranking for me. It is technically the worst Bond film? Possibly. Is Roger Moore way too old and obviously wearing a bad toupee? Yes. Is Christopher Walken way over the top? Yes. But I think I saw this one at the right age. It was only the second or third Bond film I ever saw, and I loved it as a kid. Plus, it has the best title song in the entire series from Duran Duran. Yes, I said best, even better than the Goldfinger song. View to a Kill, I cannot go with you there. Cannot go with you there. But I understand. Good arguments. GoldenEye, number 7. Another film that resurrected the franchise. The Tina Turner song is incredible, written by Bono and The Edge, by the way. You've probably noticed how catchy the title song plays a part in how I rank these. Honestly, this is the only Brosnan film I like. The rest are pretty forgettable. You know what? Well, I think Tomorrow Never Dies and Twine, The World Is Not Enough, are underrated. Number 6, Dr. No. Another Bond film I had seen only once prior to this rewatch. While not the most entertaining, I don't see any real flaws with it. Plus, it introduced the world to Sean Connery. I'm with you there. Number 5, From Russia with Love. This was the second time I'd seen this one, and it was great. I had to include it. Look, I think From Russia with Love is the best distillation of Ian Fleming's novels into film. Number 4, Casino Royale, a film that resurrected the franchise. I do remember in 2006 having my doubts about this movie, and it just blew me away with how good it was. I mean, it's very modern. I'm with you right there. 3, The Spy Who Loved Me. I've watched this one the most by far in my life. Roger Moore at his best. I grant you that. It gave us Jaws, and come on, James Bond skiing off a cliff with the British flag parachute. What's not to love? Nothing. It's easily the best Roger Moore Bond, and it is one of my favorites of the franchise, and the first one I saw in the theater. Number 2, Skyfall. Craig's best Bond film. Same reasons as Goldfinger. It's nearly flawless, amazing music, and a great villain. As you know, I'm not a fan of Skyfall because James Bond repeatedly fails throughout the whole movie. But again, beautifully made, and Adele's theme song, I like it. Number 1, this was an easy choice. It's flawless from start to finish. Goldfinger. The title song is incredible, and it has one of the series' most memorable villains. And you know what? Let's hear it for James Bond playing golf. A good list. Again, no Honor Majesty Secret Service on your list. You've got the 3. You've got From Russia with Love, Goldfinger, and Dr. No. I really, you got Living Daylights, which I really like. This is a very respectable list you have. I can't argue with it. So good on you, sir. Brian, thank you for writing this in. I appreciate that very much. Speaking of Amir B, here's a letter from Amir B. Hi, Rob. Feel free to share this if you so desire. Recently, I've been thinking a lot about the whole notion of verisimilitude for 2 main reasons. One is because of all of your discussions surrounding its impact on the viewing experience. And second is because in the last 2 years or so, I've become fascinated with movies that in my teens and even early 20s, I didn't enjoy. Similarly, there are some of the movies I used to enjoy, but now I can't even finish them. We often discuss verisimilitude in terms of visual effects, but I feel there's more to it. Verisimilitude refers to something appearing as true. And I think there's two more dimensions to it: intelligence verisimilitude and emotional verisimilitude. 100% I agree with you, Amir. In this letter, I wanted to talk about them. Verisimilitude is not just about the way something looks, it's about the way it feels too, and how smart it is. You're absolutely right. First, one of the issues I have with a good portion of movies nowadays is the lack of character intelligence. When I say intelligence, I don't mean smart. Rather, I mean a character's logic in judgments, response to dangers, and consistency of dialogue. I feel every character must have a certain level of intelligence based on his or her background and profession, in addition to any unique attributes that he or she may have. For example, if a character is a scientist, like Willow Yang, I expect that at least to possess certain attributes that a real scientist should possess. For instance, being analytical and smart to a degree. There can definitely be many other characteristics, but having those two is sort of a must for scientists. There's definitely subjectivity as to what core attributes a scientist can have, but hopefully you will see what I mean. Oh, I do. And that's why the movie Prometheus lost me. What a bunch of morons were on that ship. They're supposed to be the best humanity has to offer, and they're idiots. Oh, here's a giant cobra-headed alien black anal snake, wherever it came from. Let's just touch it. Yeah, that's smart. But I agree with you. So many movies nowadays have the, quote, out-of-place characters, unquote. Jurassic World 2 and Prometheus are two of my all-time most hated movies. My God, I can't stand either of them. Not because the CGI is not great. Actually, I think both are beautifully shot. Rather, the characters lack any intelligence. They don't even possess the basic attributes that main characters based on their background should have. Take Prometheus, for instance. I can see someone making such dumb decisions, but not freaking scientists. The way they make decisions is like someone who never sat in a science class or undergone any training for travel in unknown outer space. This is also why Knives Out didn't work for me. I couldn't believe any of the characters. I'm an immigrant, but there's a scene that the characters are talking about legal versus illegal immigration, and it's so surface level and out of place to tone of the movie that it is almost insulting. It's as if someone took the Twitter arguments of a group of people and gave them to the actors and to say them. Related to this are the so-called Mary Sues, such as Ray, Dom, or Captain Marvel. For me, they're not so much a Mary Sue as there's a lack of consistency between how the characters are defined and what's being shown to me. They don't click. Their judgment, the way their response to problems, and the way they lack no consistency in their dialogue is off-putting, and it doesn't have any realism. Hence, no intelligence, verisimilitude. You nailed it right there. Additionally, there's the matter of emotional verisimilitude. Analogous to how a lack of intelligence has started to throw me off, I've started to lack interest in movies that lack any contextual, realistic emotion from characters. I see it in a lot of movies. If something bad happens or someone dies, the next scene they're cracking jokes. Furthermore, in a lot of movies, strength or weakness are getting equated to emotions, and the characters are becoming bipolar. They either show at peak strength, they're about to do something big in the final act, or peak weakness. Something bad happened in the second act. However, neither of these are expressions of real emotion. Whatever genre may be, people are always at the center, and people have different arrays of emotions: happiness, sadness, regret, or fear, to name a few. However, a lot of emotional scenes that can occur nowadays are looked over. This is something the older movies used to do much better. Die Hard and Aliens are two of my all-time favorite action movies. One of the reasons is that almost all the characters have an emotional arc, which is true to the story and is consistently depicted. One of my all-time favorite movies is Prisoners. That movie is peak emotional verisimilitude. There are so many scenes the characters are silent and are processing information. The film works so well for me because I feel the characters. Another example is the whole last hour of The Irishman, starting with that dinner all the way through to the end, including the very last shot of the movie. You get to see the characters in fear of the future, doubt of the present, and regret over past events. I can't relate to the lifestyle, but I can relate to the emotion. especially as I'm growing older. I've started to think about my own mortality and what I've done with my life. Overall, I think verisimilitude is multidimensional and it's not just about the CGI. In any case, I wanted to share this with you. Thanks, Rob, and have a great rest of the day. Best regards, Amir. Well, Amir, as I've always talked about verisimilitude, I mean three-dimensional verisimilitude, not just CGI, but what you're saying is absolutely correct. You don't just need to believe what you see, you have to believe what you know and what you feel as well. And I think that if characters, the lazy histrionics of a lot of action movies today, they bother me. And what's really interesting too, and I can't stress this enough, is verisimilitude is on a sliding scale. And people have always asked me, I've said this before, why do you like the Fast and the Furious franchise so much? And to me, as far as a B movie action franchise stepped up to the A level with budgets, I feel like the Fast and the Furious, if you're talking about car racing movies, it has a Star Trek quality of family and all that. And, I loved Fast Five because although the physics with the two cars and the vault at the end don't really work, it's a B movie. It's a B movie that delivers on the goods and the histrionics and the emotional journey the characters go on. It's perfect for that movie. Like if I was trying to explain this to an actor once about why I like these films, and he was dismissed. He poo-pooed the whole franchise, and I said, "Yeah, but if you're making a movie like the old Chuck Norris film, Good Guys Wear Black, or you're making American Ninja with Michael Dudikoff, yeah, you might be making a low budget canon film. By the way, I'm not saying that American Ninja has verisimilitude because it does not. But it depends what realm you're working in, and you can make verisimilitude is on a sliding scale. I love my low budget B movies, and there are B movies like I love Battle Beyond the Stars because I think again with authorship, what they tried to do with Battle Beyond the Stars made me love it. James Cameron worked on it, but there's things in it that tells you like there's a scene where one of the characters is talking to Shad, the hero that Richard Thomas plays, where one of the characters is explaining that he's going to join Shad's quest to save his planet Akira. Get it? Akira. He's going to save his planet, and the main character played by John Saxon is named Sador. And then the character goes, Sador of the Malmori? And that's when he finds out Sador's involved, he's going to join this quest to kill Sador. And the character says, I'm only in this for Sador. I want his head. And Richard Thomas is the line that Shad says is, he thinks about it, he's like, well, you're welcome to it. And it's just with that line, with that dialogue exchange, you realize that yes, John Sayles, one of the great screenwriters of the modern age of 70s cinema and then 80s cinema, they knew what kind of a movie they were making. I know it's a Corman movie and it's clearly a Star Wars ripoff, and James Horner even ripped off the Goldsmith score for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. But Battle Beyond the Stars knows what it is. And the filmmakers are in on the joke. Everybody understands the kind of movie they were making. And even the humorous jokes are some of them are silly, like Nestor, the collective consciousness creatures that fly the flying saucer. We are Nestor. There's a scene when they eat like a hot dog, and you see one of them eating it, and all of them are their mouths are moving. I mean, even though it's all comedy and it's wacky, within the context of the movie that they're making, the fact that, yes, it's a riff on the Magnificent Seven, it's a riff on Star Wars, but the tongue-in-cheek nature of it was also smart and funny. So they're announcing to you that, yes, we know exactly the kind of movie that we're making and we're delivering the goods. Does Battle Beyond the Stars have verisimilitude? Probably not. But everything that's in it, it knows and understands what it is, and it delivers those things. So while I wouldn't say it has peak verisimilitude, I think that the kind of movie they were making, what they set out to do, was perfectly realized. They're at their budget level, and that's really hard to do. So, you're right. To me, it's all about authorship. I like verisimilitude because the more realistic something it is, the more I love it. But whether it's emotional verisimilitude or whatever, it all comes down to this. You as an audience must believe. It's all about creating belief. Because if you believe in what you're watching, even Battle Beyond the Stars, which is not necessarily overtly believable, but in the proscenium of the frame that it presents you, you believe that story being told. At least I do. There's a lot of people now. What's funny is verisimilitude changes. In 1980, a low budget effects movie, I was already very forgiving. While I think that, including James Cameron, there's a lot of very talented effects people that worked on Battle Beyond the Stars. Not a very expensive movie, and even the way it's shot, the colors, the models, everything, it creates a certain spell, and I think it works within that spell. There's a lot of people now that, when you've seen Alien, even though Galaxy of Terror came out on the heels of Alien, there's a lot of people after seeing Alien, you can't buy into Galaxy of Terror because you understand it's low budget. But I think you're right. I mean, verisimilitude it's not just about how it looks, it's about how it feels. And that, you're absolutely right about that. Very much so. So yeah, again, it's tough. Well, everyone, that brings me to this, a conclusion of Robservations episode number, oh my God, what is it? 94. 294. We're 6 episodes away from episode 300. Again, if you want to send me videos, anybody that sent me videos of those things, you can send them to the website. I've got a few already. You can say hello to the Post-Geek Singularity. I'm going to cut them all together. I'm going to have the ability. The show's going to completely change on episode 300. I mean, it'll still be me, but it'll be a lot more visually interesting, a lot more produced, a lot slicker. Indeed. The theme song will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to thank everybody for supporting the channel. I want to thank my moderators. Of course, I want to thank Jordy Lyons. I want to thank Lewis Yu. I want to thank Greg Smith, the great Greg Smith, who's working. I've seen no progress reports on Greg Smith's 1-to-1 scale snowspeeder that's supposed to be at the Emerald City Comic Con, but maybe because he's too busy moderating this channel and making a living. I, of course, want to thank Detective Jim. Everyone bother Detective Jim for getting his passport. We got to get him to England to see Die, or No Time to Die. And also, of course, the Honorable Mayor Mike Bodden of Riverdale, Iowa. And I thank him for all the work that he does, not just as a moderator, but putting together the website and, of course, being there. In case anyone doesn't know, he is the admin in terms of transparency. Yes, he's the administrator of the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page. No one is hiding that. So just so you know, he is. And I want to thank you all again for supporting the channel. Please go and interact on the website, on the Burnettwork.net website. I, of course, am Robert Meyer Burnett, your host, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your master of fun and wonder, and I will be back tomorrow. My God, guys, we're rolling into another Star Wars movie week. Can you believe it? And that's and remember, the Mandalorian episode 7 drops on Wednesday with apparently a special preview of The Rise of Skywalker. For those who want to know, I'm seeing the movie at 6 o'clock Thursday night Pacific time at the Chinese Theater, and I'm very excited about that. So there you go. So this thus ends Robservations episode number 294. And again, I want to thank all of you. And remember, everybody you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, I will say this. Have a better day.